All right, so welcome back. Today, this video is going to take you through generating your own particle. One thing the Unreal documentation takes you through is the parts of the particle. However, it really doesn't get too in-depth as far as, well, what if I wanted to make specific flames or specific smoke types? So that's what we're going to talk about here, also so that you can visually see the process of making a particle system. Now, before we dive in here and create our project, just a word of caution here. The more particle systems you add, yes, the engine will let you preview those as far as the overall design. For folks who might have a lower end computer, I will be showing you how you can turn this off if you need to. So I'm going to go ahead here. I'm going to choose a new project category. For right now, I'll stick to the third person. I'm going to say next. And in this project, so I'm going to call this MMC170 particles. And I'm going to go ahead and create the project. Few things whenever you're first starting to work with a particle system. The particle system itself is actually inside of the Unreal Editor. However, if you wanted to generate your own particle materials from a texture, you're going to an external resource such as GIMP or Photoshop or any of the kind of graphical editing programs here. For this demo, I will be using Photoshop. I will show you how to do that. So let's go ahead here, and I'm going to hop down into my content browser area. I'm going to go back to content here. All right, so what I'm going to do here is, let's see, I'm going to add a new folder, and I'm going to call this particle assets. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and double click in here. At the bare bones minimum, your particle systems are going to have three elements. You're going to have the particle system itself. You're going to have the texture that is applied to the material that is imported into the particle system. So to begin here, I'm in this folder that is going to hold my particle stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and add new. And as you can see, a particle system is pretty much one of the core assets that you are creating here. So I'll go ahead and say particle system. We'll call this example particle. And that's pretty much it as far as creating your particle system. Now, to go a little bit more in depth though, similar to the materials, similar to other assets inside of Unreal, if I double click this, notice how I get a brand new window that pops up where I can actually have the emitters, and then per each emitter, you see here like you have required, spawn, lifetime, so on and so forth here. And if you go and look down here, you can see how each of these elements change here. Probably for starting out with particle systems, overall, the emitter itself, as far as the details, is an area you will want to work with. Also, as well, as far as the spawn and the rate of the spawn, you can work with that as well as far as going through these elements. But let's say, for sake of argument now, okay, so you have this particle system. You can actually preview how the system looks, but you say to yourself, okay, I don't want it to just be, you know, a bunch of rainbow colored particles here. I want it to be something specific. We are going to have to hop out into Photoshop to generate that. And then whenever we come back, notice if you click on required, here is a material option where you can actually change out the material of your emitter. So we're going to hold that thought. I'm going to save, and I'm going to X out here. Before we jump into Photoshop, though, one thing that you might want to try is, okay, actually adding the particle system into your game level. Similar to a lot of the other counterparts as far as static meshes, you just click and hold, we drag, we drop the particle system. So now if I play my level, you can see I can kind of go through my particle system, but you can see that default there. I'm going to escape out. With one particle system, not the end of the world here. As you can see, my machine can handle it, but let's say, your machine, you're a little concerned about having numerous particle systems appearing in the overall design here. Um, Under the Show drop-down menu here, if you scroll down, there is an option here, and I'll hover here for a second, called Particle Sprites. You will still be able to see the icon of the particle, but you will no longer have the effect of the particle system playing in your preview window here. So just to demonstrate this, if I uncheck this, you see now how you see the particle system, but you're just not seeing the effect of the particle system. From a design standpoint and a workflow standpoint, this can be very helpful. However, I would also suggest maybe thinking about doing your particle systems towards the end of your overall level design. So for example, yes, put the torches in. Yes, put the fireplace in, or put the cup of hot liquid in, but don't add like smoke or flames until the very end of the project when you're getting closer to getting ready to build. I will check this back on just so that you can see in the demo here how this is working. So fantastic. We now have a particle system in place, but again, we want to change it around. We want to add our own particles to it. So I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to navigate and open up Adobe Photoshop. Again, any form of software as far as a graphical editor will work for this. So what I'm going to do here is I am going to create new. Now, it is up to you as far as the size of your particle system is concerned here, but I normally default to 150 by 150. One other thing you're going to want to set as far as creating the document here is you are going to want a black background. What we are actually going to do is uh, Unreal calls it additive as far as the material is concerned. And what that's going to do is it's going to create a cutout based on that black background area around whatever element you want to actually be the particle system. So I'm going to make sure, if you need to, you can click on the drop down here, you can set that to black, and then we're going to go ahead and create. For this demo here, I'm going to go ahead and I am just going to navigate to the custom shape tool, and I'm going to use one of the custom shapes. Now, super exciting for us in Adobe 2020 here, they have added brand new elements here. So for instance, you have wild animals. I am super excited, even though they do not have a kitty cat, they do have a moose. So we are going to go with the moose. I'm going to go over here. We're going to change maybe to, I want to have maybe a green moose. And I'm just going to come into my work area here. And then using my move tool, just reposition my moose there. All right, you don't need to worry about going all the way to the edges of the overall design here. This is something here that we can, that Unreal can and will work around. So once you have the graphic how you'd like it to be as far as acting as a texture, a couple of suggestions I have. Number one, when you go to save it, I would suggest saving the PSD. Hold on to that in case you need to make any edits to regenerate your documents. So I'm going to go ahead here. I'm going to navigate to my UE4. I'm going to go into particles, content. Here we go, particle assets. So I'm going to call this like maybe particle base, and I'll save it. Tell it OK. And then I am going to go under File. I'll export as a PNG. And maybe I change this from base to particle pub for publish. Now I should be able to navigate back here, and yep, Unreal is picking that up. I have two new files here, so I'll tell it to import. Okay, so there are my two elements here. So there's my published and there is my base. So a couple of ways you can do this. Because this is a texture, if you right click on it, you're going to get some flyout menus, but what you can do is you can create a material using the texture here. So there now you can see it's wrapping around the material. If I double click, it's already done the hookup for me here. And right now what you can see is as far as the circle is concerned, I'll actually shift over to, let's give this a second. Okay, so there we go. So you can see kind of that black area behind the little moose. We need to change the blend mode of this material here. So with the blend mode, you want to make sure some things that get people a little confused is they may actually have the texture active here. Notice the gold outline here. We don't want that. We actually want to have the material result node highlighted. On the details for this, under blend mode, right now we have opaque. Go ahead, switch that over to additive. Unreal is going to think for a minute. And now what you should see is you see how now I've lost that black background around the moose, and all I have left is the moose kind of showing up there. That's exactly what I want. So I'm going to go ahead here, I'm going to save. And we are now prepared to go back and revisit our particle system and change the particle system so now instead of having just the default elements, it will actually have all of the different particles being little mooses. So I'm going to X out. There's that particle system. Notice the material is now reflecting that change. So let's hop back into my particle system. In my particle system now, if you recall, under the emitter, I'm able to go under the required area. But as you can see here, for material, we have the default particles here. Because I made a brand new project and I don't have a lot of materials, notice I can click on the drop down and there is that new published particle, the material that I generated. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. Be prepared. This can take a little bit of time depending on your machine and things like that. But there we go. You can now see if I zoom in, there are a bunch of little mooses now being generated in my particle system. So if I now save my particle system, I'm going to X out, I play, and huzzah, we have a bunch of little moose particles appearing. Why we would need this, I'm not entirely sure, but I think it's fantastic that we have this option. So that's to take you through the process of generating your own particle systems. So hopefully this video helped alongside the UE4 documentation. It goes much more in depth as far as changing the lifespan, changing as far as the emitter itself. So that with this lecture video, hopefully this gives you some ideas as far as playing around with the different systems.